The morning started with a weight on his chest. At first, he thought it was just a heavy dream. The kind where you feel trapped and cannot move, but when he opened his eyes, he froze. There was someone on top of him, pressing him down. A woman. Not a normal woman. Her skin shimmered faint silver. Like moonlight poured into flesh, her large eyes glowed faint blue, and her hair fell like strands of silk that shifted colors with the light. She was breathing fast, looking at him with fear, not anger, not desire, but raw fear. And she whispered, "Don't move, please. They will sense us." His heart raced, his body tense. He wanted to push her away, to shout, to demand answers, but her eyes held him still. Her weight pinned him. But it was her desperation that froze him more than her strength. This was no dream. This was real. He swallowed, his throat dry. "Who are you? What are you doing in my house?" He whispered back. The woman didn't answer at first. She pressed her hand to his chest, right where his heart was beating. Then she leaned down, so close that her hair brushed his face. "Your heartbeat hides me," she said in a trembling voice. "If you move, they will hear me." The words made no sense, but the terror in her eyes was clear. Suddenly, a sound came from outside, a scraping noise across the window. Slow, deliberate, he froze again, every nerve in his body screaming. The alien woman's body pressed harder against him, as if trying to melt into his skin. Minutes passed like hours. The scraping faded, leaving only silence. She finally let out a shaky breath and looked at him. Her voice was soft, almost breaking. "You saved me without knowing." He blinked, confused and overwhelmed. "Saved you? From what?" She sat up slightly, but did not leave his chest. Her glowing eyes darted toward the window. "They hunt me," she whispered. "They can track me through the vibrations of the air, but your heartbeat, it confuses them." He stared at her, in disbelief, his mind spinning between fear, anger, and shock. "I don't even know your name," he said. "And you're telling me monsters are after you?" Her lips trembled as if she wanted to say more, but couldn't. Instead, she lowered her head. "Call me Lyra," she whispered. "And yes, monsters, but not the kind you know." Lyra, the name echoed in his head. This was insane, impossible. But her body was warm, her weight real, her fear undeniable. He could feel her trembling slightly against him, not strong and confident like an intruder, but fragile and desperate like someone running from death. "Why me?" he asked. "Why my house?" Lyra's eyes met his, glowing softly in the dim morning light. "Because you are human," she said, "and humans are the only ones they cannot fully predict." The words sounded strange, like a puzzle he didn't understand. Before he could question more, a loud thump came from the hallway. Both of them froze. Lyra pressed her hand over his mouth, her finger to her lips. Her whole body stiffened as footsteps echoed outside the bedroom door. Slow, deliberate, heavy. He had never felt fear like this before. This wasn't just about an intruder in his house. This was something greater, something alien. His breath caught in his chest, but Lyra's hand pressed firmly, keeping him silent. The footsteps stopped. Silence hung heavy in the room. Then, slowly, the sound of the footsteps moved away, fading into nothing. Only then did she release him, her chest rising and falling as if she had been holding her breath the whole time. Tears shimmered in her glowing eyes. "You don't understand yet," she said softly. "But you are the reason I am still alive." He sat up now, his fear mixing with anger. "I didn't ask for this," he said, his voice harsh but shaking. "You broke into my house, you pinned me down, you talk about hunters, monsters, heartbeats. None of this makes sense." Lyra's face softened, and her voice was filled with sadness. "I didn't choose you at random," she whispered. "I was sent here to be your housekeeper, but the truth is deeper, and you will know it soon. The word housekeeper felt so out of place, so strange compared to the danger that filled the air. He shook his head, trying to deny what he was living. But the sounds, the fear in her eyes, and the way his heart still pounded told him this was no nightmare. It was real, and it was only the beginning. She looked at him with quiet intensity, her glowing eyes unblinking. "Trust me for now," she said. "If you want to live." The room grew silent again, but his heart, steady and strong, echoed between them and somewhere outside. In the dark shadows, something waited. The morning light slipped through the curtains, painting the room in pale gold. He sat on the edge of the bed, his mind racing, his chest still heavy from what had happened. Lyra stood near the window, her silver skin glowing faintly as if the sunlight itself wanted to cling to her. She kept glancing outside, every muscle in her body tense, as though danger was still out there. He rubbed his forehead, trying to calm himself. "You said you were sent here as my housekeeper," he said slowly. "What does that even mean?" Lyra turned, her glowing eyes meeting his. Her lips pressed together before she spoke. "It means I was assigned to live with you. To clean, to cook, to care for the house," she whispered. But that was only the surface, only the excuse, his. Heartbeat quickened. "What do you mean, excuse? Who assigned you?" he asked, his voice sharper now. Lyra lowered her head, her hair shifting colors like a soft wave of silver and blue. "The Intergalactic Agency," she said. "They chose me. They placed me here. They told you nothing because they believe humans should not know too much." His chest tightened, a cold weight sinking into him. "So I wasn't chosen. I was tricked into this." Lyra shook her head quickly, her eyes desperate. "No, not tricked. Protected," she said, her voice breaking. "I was meant to be close to you, because you are not ordinary, because your very heartbeat can shield me from them." The words echoed in his ears, filling him with confusion and anger. He stood up, pacing across the room. "This is insane," he muttered. "I'm just a normal man. I live in a normal house. I didn't ask for aliens, or agencies, or hunters creeping in the night." Lyra stepped closer, her hands trembling slightly. "I know, and I am sorry," she whispered, "but you are not as normal as you think." Her words sent a chill through him. "What do you mean by that?" he demanded. Lyra hesitated, then looked at him with those glowing blue eyes that seemed to see through his soul. "Humans. Your kind," she said softly. "You carry something no other species has. Something invisible, but powerful, and they fear it. The hunters fear it." He stared at her, not knowing if he should laugh or shout. "And what is that? Magic?" he asked bitterly. Lyra shook her head. "No, not magic," she said. "Willpower, unpredictability. The spark that cannot be measured." Silence fell between them, heavy and strange. He looked at her, and for the first time, beneath all her fear, he saw guilt. She was hiding something deeper, something heavier than just being assigned as his housekeeper. "Tell me everything," he said firmly. "No more half-truths, no more whispers, if you want me to trust you. You tell me everything." Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, as though gathering strength. When she opened them again, her voice was steady, though her hands still trembled. "My people were enslaved once," she began. "Long before you knew of the stars, the hunters were our masters. They tracked us, captured us, drained us of our gifts, but some of us escaped, and we found refuge with the agency." Her voice cracked, but she pushed on. "The agency made rules, strict rules, and one of those rules was that every runaway like me must be bonded to a human household, hidden in plain sight." He felt his mouth go dry. "Bonded?" he asked. "You mean forced?" Lyra shook her head, tears shining in her glowing eyes. "Not forced, not like slavery," she said. "But yes, without your consent." They placed me here, and I had no choice but to play the role of your housekeeper. To pretend it was normal, but in truth, I was being hidden. Shielded by you, his fists clenched, not from anger at her, but at the thought that some faceless agency could treat his life like a tool. He wanted to be furious, but when he looked at her trembling figure, fear radiating from her like heat, something softened inside him. You should have told me, he said quietly. I deserve to know. Lyra's face broke into sorrow. I wanted to, she whispered, but the agency forbade it. They warned me that if I told you the truth, they would take me away. And humans who know too much would disappear too. His breath caught. Disappear. The word felt sharp and cold. The weight of it pressed down on him. You mean they would kill me? He said flatly. Lyra flinched. Her silence said more than words. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air was thick, filled with things unsaid. Finally, he stepped closer, his voice softer now. So all this time, you weren't just cleaning. You weren't just some stranger in my house. You were hiding from death, and I was the shield without even knowing. Lyra nodded, her glowing eyes glistening. And now you know, she whispered. And I don't know if that makes you safer, or puts you in greater danger outside. The wind rattled against the window. He felt a shiver run down his spine. Danger was close, closer than ever, and the secret she had revealed was only the beginning. The day dragged on with a heavy silence in the house. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind against the glass made him tense. Lyra moved through the rooms like a shadow, her eyes always fixed on the windows, the doors, the corners where darkness seemed to gather. She no longer looked like a housekeeper, not even like a guest, but like someone standing guard against an enemy he could not see. He tried to keep himself calm, making coffee, pacing, forcing normal thoughts into his head. But each time he looked at her, the strange silver glow of her skin and the way her eyes darted around reminded him that normal had ended the moment he woke up to her weight pressing him down. By evening, the air felt heavier, thicker, like the whole world was holding its breath. He stood near the front door, listening, and for a long moment he thought it was only his imagination. Then he heard it, a faint scrape, like claws dragging along metal. Just beyond the gate, he froze, his chest tight. Lyra, he whispered. Someone's out there. Lyra appeared at his side in seconds, her eyes glowing brighter. She placed a finger on her lips and tilted her head. Listening, the sound came again, louder this time, closer, not footsteps, not human. Her face tightened with fear. They've found us, she whispered. Before he could speak, the lights flickered, buzzing faintly. The air grew cold, unnatural. He felt every hair on his body stand on end. Outside, shadows moved between the trees, tall and thin, their shapes twisting. In the dim light, like something not fully solid, he pressed his back against the wall, his heart hammering. What are they? He whispered. Lyra's voice shook as she answered. The hunters, they are not men. They are not beasts. They are something in between, and they never stop once they mark their prey. The scraping sound turned into knocking, slow, steady, deliberate, knock, 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 each one louder than the last. The door rattled under the force. He swallowed hard. They're trying to get in. Lyra grabbed his arm, her grip strong. Do not open it, she said urgently. Whatever happens, do not face them head on. They thrive on fear. They twist it. He nodded, though his body was screaming at him to run, to shout, to fight. The knocking stopped suddenly, replaced by silence so deep it made his chest ache. Then a voice, smooth and cold, slipped through the cracks of the door. Give her to us, human, it said, and we will let you live. He froze, his blood running cold. The voice was not like any he had ever heard. It was layered, as if a dozen whispers spoke at once. Lyra clung tighter to his arm. Her face pale, her lips trembling. "Do not answer them," she whispered. "If you speak, they will know your fear." But the voice returned, louder this time, pressing against his ears like ice. "She does not belong to you, human. She belongs to us. Open the door. Open it now." He clenched his fists, forcing himself to stay quiet. Inside, his chest burned with fear and anger. Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with both terror and trust. It struck him then he was the only barrier between her and them, the only shield. And though he was just a man, fragile and small compared to the monsters outside, he would not hand her over. The silence stretched long after the voice faded. Then came the sound of claws dragging across the walls of the house, slow circles scraping the paint, carving into the wood. The hunters were not leaving. They were marking their territory, surrounding him. Lyra whispered in a shaky voice. "They will test you. They will push you. But if you hold, they cannot break you. Not yet." He glanced at her, his voice low and rough. "And if I fail?" Lyra's glowing eyes met his. "Then they take us both, and you will never see the sun again." His heart pounded so hard he thought it might break his chest. The scratching continued, sometimes at the windows, sometimes at the roof, sometimes crawling like nails across the glass. It was as if a storm of claws had wrapped the entire house. He wanted to scream, but he held it in, clenching his teeth, standing firm. Lyra moved closer to him, her hand brushing his, her touch trembling. "You are stronger than you think," she whispered. "I saw it in you the moment I met you." The night dragged on, endless and cruel. The hunters did not break down the door. They did not shatter the windows. They only circled, scratched, whispered, testing him. And though his fear never left, he did not open the door. He did not give them the victory they wanted. At last, just before dawn, the noises faded. The scratching stopped, and silence returned. His body sagged with exhaustion, but he remained standing, his eyes on the door. Lyra's hand slipped into his, warm and fragile. "You did not give me up," she whispered, her voice breaking with relief. "And that means you are with me now, whether you choose it or not." He looked at her, still trembling, still unsure of what he had stepped into, but one thing was certain. The hunters knew where he lived, and they would come again, and next time. Silence and scratching might not be all they brought. The night ended, but peace did not return. The house felt like a cage now, each wall echoing with the memory of claws scraping against it. He sat in the living room, exhausted but unable to sleep, his eyes fixed on the door. Lyra moved quietly around the room, her silver glow softer now, dim as though her strength had drained away. When she finally sat across from him, silence stretched between them. Her eyes shimmered faint blue in the morning light, fragile, almost human in their sadness. "You didn't give me up," she said softly. Breaking the silence, he rubbed his tired face, his voice rough. "I almost did," he admitted, "but something in me, I couldn't." Lyra leaned forward, her hands clasped together. "My people would call you foolish for that," she whispered. "Humans are fragile, they say. Easy to break, easy to sway. But you chose danger over safety." He looked at her, his expression hard but curious. "And what do your people call that?" he asked. Lyra's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Hope," she said. "They call it hope," for the first time since she had appeared in his life. The tension eased a little. They sat in the soft morning light. Two strangers bound by fear, yet something new lingered between them. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "You keep saying my heartbeat hides you," he said. "Tell me why. I need to understand." Lyra hesitated, her fingers brushing the edge of the table. "My species," she began. "We are connected. Two vibrations, every movement, every pulse. It is like a map of sound and rhythm. The hunters use this against us. They can track us through it, but you're kind. Your heartbeats are different. Her glowing eyes met his, steady and unblinking. Your rhythm is unpredictable, messy, wild. No two humans are the same. It makes it impossible for them to read. So when I pressed myself against you, when I matched my breath to your heart, their senses failed. And I disappeared from their sight. He let out a long breath, trying to grasp the strange truth. So, I'm basically a shield for you, just by existing. Lyra nodded slowly. Yes, but more than that. She whispered, you are something. They fear, because what cannot be predicted cannot be controlled. Her words sank deep into him, stirring something he couldn't name. For years he had thought of himself as ordinary, unnoticed, just another face in the crowd. But now, an alien. Woman sat before him, telling him that the very thing he always thought meaningless, his humanity was powerful enough to shield another life. Lyra's face softened, and for the first time she looked less like a frightened refugee and more like someone reaching. For comfort, you don't understand how rare that is, she said, her voice almost breaking. My people spent centuries running, hiding, always outnumbered, always hunted, and yet, here you are, a human, fragile and small, standing against them without weapons, without orders, just because you couldn't give me up. He looked at her, and a quiet warmth spread in his chest. Not love, not yet, but something close to trust. You're not alone anymore, he said quietly, not while you're here. Her eyes widened at his words, and her lips trembled as though she wanted to speak, but couldn't. Instead, she looked down, her fingers curling tightly. Do you mean that? She whispered. He nodded, firm and steady. Yes, I mean it, for a moment. The house no longer felt like a prison. The silence between them was no longer heavy with fear, but softer, filled with unspoken promises. Later that day, as the sun dipped low, Lyra helped him repair the scratches along the walls. Her hands moved carefully. Graceful, even in such a simple task, he watched her. Struck by the strange beauty of it, an alien woman patching human wood, like two worlds trying to fit together. At one point, their hands brushed, and both froze. Lyra's cheeks flushed with a soft silver glow, and she pulled back quickly. But not before their eyes met. Neither spoke, but the bond grew in the silence, stronger than words, that night. They sat side by side near the fireplace, the only light flickering against the walls. He asked her questions about her world, and she answered carefully, painting pictures of skies that shimmered with 3 moons, of oceans made of crystal light, of songs that carried across mountains. Her voice carried both wonder and sorrow. The memories of a home she could never return to. When she spoke of her people, her voice shook, but when she spoke of him, of humanity, her voice steadied. You are different, she said quietly. You carry fire where others carry fear. That is why they cannot cage you. He looked into the flames, thinking of her words. Fire, yes, maybe that was what it was, the thing that kept him from opening the door. The thing that kept him standing when everything told him to fall. And in that moment, with the hunters lurking somewhere in the darkness beyond, he realized something important. The bond between him and Lyra was no longer about survival alone. It was about choice, about trust, about something stronger than fear. As the night grew deeper, Lyra leaned her head gently against his shoulder. Her voice was barely a whisper. Thank you, she said, for choosing me, even when you didn't have to. He didn't answer. He just sat there, letting the warmth of her words and the steady beat of his own heart fill the silence. And for the first time since the nightmare began, the darkness outside felt just a little less heavy. The next morning began with silence. No scratching at the walls, no voices at the door, only the soft hum of the world waking up, but silence did not bring comfort anymore. It only meant the hunters were waiting. Watching, planning their next move, he sat at the kitchen table, staring at the untouched cup of coffee before him. Lyra stood nearby, her hands pressed against the counter, her glowing eyes distant. Finally, he spoke, his voice heavy. "They'll be back, won't they?" Lyra nodded slowly, her hair shifting colors like ripples of water. "Yes," she whispered. "They never give up once they mark someone. And now they have marked us both." He clenched his jaw, anger mixing with fear. "Then we can't just sit here waiting," he said firmly. "We need to fight back." Lyra flinched at his words, her eyes widening. "No," she said quickly. "You don't understand. Fighting them head-on is suicide. They are faster, stronger, older than you can imagine." He leaned forward, his eyes burning. "Then what do you suggest?" "Keep hiding. Until they tear down the door. Until they drag you away in front of me." Lyra's lips trembled, her hands gripping the counter tighter. "I cannot fight them openly," she whispered. "But I have something I was never supposed to use here." His eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Lyra hesitated, then raised her hand slowly. At first, nothing happened. Then the air around her hand shimmered, bending like heat waves in the desert. A faint glow spread across her skin. Pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat, the light grew stronger, and in an instant, the wooden spoon on the counter lifted into the air. Floating as if invisible strings held it, he stared, his mouth dry. "You can move things," he whispered. Lyra nodded, her glowing eyes shimmering brighter. "Yes, but not just things," she said softly. "Bend vibrations, shift energy, disrupt the senses of those who hunt me. It is a gift of my people. But it is also a curse." She lowered her hand, and the spoon clattered back onto the counter. Her shoulders sagged as if the small act had drained her. "The agency forbade me from using it," she said bitterly. "They said if I did, it would draw attention. It would leave a mark for the hunters to follow. So I hid it, I buried it, I became nothing but a housekeeper." He studied her, a storm of thoughts rushing through him. "So all this time, you had this power, and you never used it," he said. Lyra's face broke with guilt. "I wanted to," she admitted, "but the moment I use it, they will know. They will come faster, harder, and I was afraid of what would happen to me. And to you." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then he stood, his voice steady. "Lyra, we don't have a choice anymore. Hiding won't save us, but maybe your power can." She looked up at him, her eyes wide with both fear and hope. "You would risk everything for me?" she whispered. He nodded, firm. "I already did the moment I didn't open that door." Her breath caught, her chest rising and falling fast. Slowly, she nodded. "Then I will show you," she said. "But you must promise me something. Promise me you won't lose yourself in the fear. Because my power works with your strength, with your heartbeat. If you falter, I falter too." He placed a hand over his chest, feeling the steady rhythm beneath his palm. "I promise," he said. "We'll do this together." That night, they began. Lyra sat cross-legged on the floor, her hands glowing faintly. He sat across from her, his eyes locked on hers. "Focus on your heartbeat," she whispered. "Let it steady. Let it guide me." He closed his eyes. Breathing slowly, each thump of his heart echoed through the silence. Strong, steady, human. Lyra raised her hands, and the air between them shimmered like ripples on water. Slowly, the glow spread, wrapping around them both like a cocoon of light. He felt a strange hum in his chest, as though his heartbeat was no longer just inside him, but flowing into her. The glow grew stronger, pulsing with their shared rhythm. Then he heard it, faint at first, then louder whispers outside, claws dragging across walls. The hunters circling again. Lyra's eyes opened, glowing brighter than ever. "They are here," she whispered. "But this time, we will not hide." The air shook with power, the walls trembled, the floor vibrated. The hunters clawed and scratched, but Lyra lifted her hands higher, her voice strong. "With your fire, with your heartbeat, I can blind them." A wave of light burst from the house, sweeping into the night. The scratching stopped, the whispers cut off, silence fell outside. He opened his eyes, gasping. What happened? Lyra lowered her hands slowly, her face pale, but her eyes fierce. "They are confused," she said, her voice trembling. "Your heartbeat through me has broken their sense of direction. They cannot see us for now." He stared at her, awe-filling. You really can fight them," he whispered. Lyra shook her head, her lips curling into the faintest smile. "No," she said softly, "we can fight them." Together, the glow faded, leaving only the two of them sitting in the dim room. But something had changed. No longer just a frightened man and a hunted alien. Now they were partners, bound by heartbeat and will, and somewhere outside, in the dark woods. The hunters growled in frustration. The game had changed, and for the first time, it was not only the hunters who had power. The night air was heavy, pressing against the house like a living thing. The glow Lyra created had faded hours ago, leaving only the soft crackle of the fireplace. He sat on the floor with her, his chest rising and falling slowly, the rhythm of his heartbeat still steady in his ears, but the silence outside was not peace. It was waiting. Lyra's eyes stayed on the door, her silver skin shimmering faintly in the firelight. "They know we struck back," she whispered. "They will not stay confused for long. Next time, they will come inside." He tightened his fists, feeling his nails bite into his palms. Then, "Let them come," he said. "I won't let them take you." Lyra turned to him, her eyes soft but firm. "You are brave," she said, "but bravery alone will not stop them. When they come, I will need all of you, your heartbeat, your will. Your fire, without it, I am nothing." He nodded, his jaw set. "Then you'll have it, all of it." The first sound came just after midnight. A sharp crack as the front gate snapped in half. Then the scrape of claws dragging along the walls, louder, harsher. Like knives carving into wood, he stood, his heart hammering. Lyra rose beside him, her hands glowing faint blue. The window shook as something heavy slammed against them. The hunters' whispers filled the air, dozens of voices layered together. "Cold and cruel, human, you cannot win. Give her to us, and your suffering ends." He clenched his teeth, shouting back for the first time, "Stay away from my house." Lyra's eyes widened at his defiance, but a small smile touched her lips. The hunters hissed, the sound rattling through the walls. Then the front door groaned, wood cracking, hinges straining. "They're breaking in," he whispered. Lyra reached for his hand, pressing it to her chest. "Then we fight together," she said. The door exploded inward, splinters flying across the room. Figures stepped into the house, tall and thin, their bodies shifting like smoke wrapped in bone. Eyes glowing faint white, claws dragging across the floor. He felt terror grip him, cold and sharp. But Lyra's hand squeezed his, grounding him. "Your heartbeat," she whispered. "Hold on to it. Let it burn." He focused, his chest thundering. Lyra lifted her hands, and the air shimmered with power. A wave of light burst from her palms, slamming into the first hunter. The creature staggered, hissing, its form rippling, but it did not fall. More poured through the doorway, circling, closing in. One lunged, its claws raised, without thinking. He grabbed a broken piece of wood from the shattered door and swung. The strike connected, sparks of light scattering as the hunter recoiled with a screech. Lyra gasped, her eyes glowing brighter. "Yes," she cried, "your fire feeds me. Keep going." The hunters swarmed, claws slashing, voices whispering promises of death and despair. But each time fear clawed at him, he forced it back, holding to the rhythm of his heartbeat. Lyra's power surged with it. Waves of light crashing into the hunters, shattering their forms like glass. Together, they fought, human and alien, will and power entwined. Still, the hunters were relentless. Each one that fell seemed to rise again, reforming from shadows. His chest burned, his arms ached, sweat poured down his face. "I can't hold much longer," he gasped. Lyra's voice rang out, strong and desperate. "You can, you must. Without you, I am lost, but with you, we are endless." Her words struck something deep inside him. A flame ignited, stronger than fear. He let out a roar, charging forward, striking with all his strength. His heartbeat thundered like a drum. Echoing through the house, Lyra's power flared with it. A blinding light filling the room. The hunters shrieked, their forms twisting, breaking. Dissolving into smoke, one by one, they fell, their whispers fading into silence. At last, the final figure collapsed. Shattering into nothing, the house fell quiet. Only the crackle of the fireplace and the ragged sound of their breathing remained. He dropped the wood, his body trembling, his chest heaving. Lyra stumbled, her glow dimming, but she caught herself. Her eyes fixed on him. "You did it," she whispered. "You truly did it." He shook his head, still gasping. "No, we did it." Together, Lyra's eyes softened, tears glistening. "You don't understand," she said quietly. "Humans are not meant to face hunters and live, but you. You stood where no other would. You gave me strength I never knew I had." He looked at her, the weight of her words sinking in. His body ached. Fear still lingered. But deep inside, pride burned brighter. He was only a man, fragile and small. Yet tonight he had fought monsters from beyond the stars. And Lyra stepped closer, her hand brushing his cheek. Her voice trembled, filled with both relief and awe. "You are more than you believe," she whispered, "and I owe you my life outside." The wind howled, carrying the last echoes of the hunters' cries. The battle was over, but the war was not. And both of them knew the hunters would return, stronger than before. But for now, standing together in the ruins of his home, they had proved something impossible that a human heartbeat could shake. The darkness asterisked the house was quiet again. Broken wood lay scattered across the floor. The walls scarred with deep claw marks. The air heavy with the scent of smoke and something colder. Something not of this world. He leaned against the wall, his chest heaving, his arms shaking from the fight. Lyra stood near him, her glow faint, but steady, her body trembling with exhaustion. For a long time, neither spoke. The only sound was the steady thump of his heartbeat. Filling the silence, at last he looked at her, his voice rough. "Why? Why were you on top of me that morning? When all of this began?" Lyra's glowing eyes softened, her lips parting as if the weight of the question pressed down on her. She took a slow step toward him, then another, until she was standing close, her silver hair catching the faint light. "I never told you the whole truth," she whispered, "because I feared you would not understand, or worse, that you would turn me away." He swallowed hard, his body tense. "I deserve the truth, Lyra," he said firmly. "After everything, I need to know." Her hands trembled as she reached up, pressing her palm lightly against his chest, right where his heart pounded strong. "When I woke you that morning," she said softly, "I wasn't trying to frighten you. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to live." Her words struck him like a blow. He stared, confused. "Live? What do you mean?" Lyra's eyes glistened, tears shimmering like liquid silver. The hunters were near, closer than they had ever been. I could feel them in the air, and the only way to survive was to silence my own rhythm, to hide in another's. Your heartbeat was the only shield I had. He froze. The memory of that morning flooding back, her weight pressing on him. Her trembling breath, her desperate whisper. You mean? You were hiding inside my heartbeat, he whispered. Lyra nodded, her lips quivering. Yes. Your rhythm drowned out mine, confused them, protected me. You were my shelter when I had nowhere else to go. The room grew heavy with silence. He felt his chest tighten, not from fear, but from the weight of her confession. You trusted me with your life, he said quietly. Lyra's voice broke as she answered, I had no choice but more than that. I wanted to, because when I first saw you, when the agency placed me here, I felt something I had never felt before. Safety. Her words hung in the air, fragile and raw. He looked at her, seeing not just the strange alien glow, not just the hunted refugee, but someone who had carried fear her whole life and still chose to trust him. A simple human. You were speechless that morning, she continued, her voice trembling, but so was I. Because I had never been so close to another. Heartbeat, never been so close to someone who wasn't my kind. And yet, I felt alive. He closed his eyes for a moment, her words sinking into him like fire. When he opened them again, his voice was steady. You're not just my housekeeper, Lyra, he said. You're part of this house now, part of me, and I won't let them take you away. Tears spilled from her glowing eyes. Sliding down her silver cheeks, she leaned forward, resting her forehead against his chest. Listening to the rhythm that had saved her life for the first time, her trembling stopped, her breath steadied. You don't know what you've given me, she whispered, not just safety, but something I thought I lost long ago. Hope. They stayed like that for a long time. Bound by silence and heartbeat, outside, the forest lay quiet. The hunters driven back, but never gone. The danger had not ended, but something inside both of them had changed. He gently lifted her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. I need you to promise me something, he said firmly. Lyra blinked, her tears catching the light. What? She asked, her voice barely audible. Promise me you won't face this alone anymore. Promise me you'll trust me the same way you trusted me that morning. Lyra's lips curved into a trembling smile. I promise, she whispered, as long as your heart beats. I will never be alone. He let out a long breath, his chest lighter than it had been in days. The house was still broken. Danger still lingered. But in that moment, he realized something powerful. This was no longer just his fight. No longer just her survival. Together, they were something stronger. Something the hunters could never predict, never cage, as dawn broke, painting the sky in gold. Lyra stood beside him at the doorway, staring out into the world beyond. The scars of the night remained, but so did their bond. She reached for his hand, her fingers slipping into his. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. When I laid on top of you that morning, I thought it was only to survive. But now I know. It was fate bringing me to the only shield I could ever trust. He squeezed her hand, a small smile breaking through his exhaustion. You didn't just find a shield, he said quietly. You found a partner, and with that, as the sun rose higher, they stood together, human and alien, fragile yet unbreakable. The hunters would come again. The battles would not end, but the truth had been revealed. Her reason for choosing him was no longer a mystery. It was simple, it was human. It was unshakable. His heartbeat had saved her life, and her trust had changed his forever.